To order. 17, will everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you, Council. Okay. Up next on the agenda, we have roll call. I think we're missing one. There we go. Good job.
All councilors present and a quorum has been declared.
Thank you, Ms. Martinez. Up next on the agenda, we have the agenda approval. Councilor Vio,
Mayor, I move that we approve the agenda as presented.
I'll second.
we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Not, please start voting. Ms. Martinez?
The motion carried unanimously.
Okay, thank you. That brings us to the next item on the agenda, citizen comments. This is the segment of the agenda where those of you who have filled out comment cards, normally I would call you and have you come up to the podium and make your comments at this time. Ms. Martinez, did you receive any comment cards at all?
I did not, Mayor.
Okay, so we don't have any comment cards for this segment, so we'll go ahead and go to the Zoom participants. And Ms. Martinez, if you don't mind, if you could give them instructions of how to raise their hand so we can recognize them on Zoom?
Yes, sir. If you're on the Zoom app and you want to speak for public comment, you use the raise hand feature in the bottom of your screen. If you're on a telephone, you'll dial *9. Mayor, I don't see anyone choosing to raise their hand.
Okay, I don't see any hands raised either, so we'll go ahead and close this segment of the agenda. And we'll move down to the next item. Under ceremonial items, we have 3 proclamations tonight. The city of Alamosa, since we work together as a team, instead of just having me read all the proclamations, we share proclamations amongst one another. And tonight, the first proclamation is going to be read by Councilor Krebs, and it's the Music Therapy Month. Is anyone here in the audience from the music therapy? If you could come up to the mics right there. And there you go. And if you would like to just say a few words before we read that proclamation, you're more than welcome to, and then we'll come down and present the proclamation to you.
Thank you so much for having us here this evening. My name is Deborah Palmer. I'm a board certified music therapist. Thank you for recognizing Music Therapy Month. Music Therapy Month has been declared by the governor for the month of April for all of Colorado. Currently, there are 293 music therapists practicing in Colorado with over 10,000 nationwide. Currently, I'm the only music therapist in the Valley, so this is a very big deal that we are able to celebrate it here tonight. There are members of a group that I run called Feel the Rhythm. It is a group for older adults to help reduce falls. Falls are the #1 cause of injuries and hospitalizations to older adults. It is astronomical how much it costs the Medicare system. So we work on coordination, range of motion, balance, and good gait, which is walking really well, having good gait posture and good walking skills. I'm just honored to be here tonight. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Krebs is going to read the proclamation, and the people who showed up with you tonight, more than welcome to join us in a photo. Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Whereas music therapy benefits persons of all ages by addressing physical, mental, social, and/or emotional differences, thereby allowing them to function more successfully in society while also enhancing their quality of life. And whereas music therapists assess emotional well-being, physical health, cognitive skills, communication skills, and the ability to function successfully in society through musical response. And whereas music therapists design music sessions for individuals and groups based on client needs. And whereas music therapists in Colorado serve the diverse needs of Coloradans receiving care in hospitals, rehabilitation settings, mental health facilities, schools, hospice, and in their homes. And whereas the Colorado Association for Music Therapy will celebrate Music Therapy Month in April 2024. And whereas Peakview Music Therapy and all of its patients and consumers, including participants of Feel the Rhythm, will also celebrate Music Therapy Month in April 2024. Now therefore, on behalf of the entire City Council, do we hereby proclaim the month of April 2024 as Music Therapy Month.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Counselor Gribbs. Okay, we'll go down. Right. So the next proclamation is going to be read by Counselor Carson, and it's the proclamation for Community Banking Month. And if I can have my community bankers come up to the podium up there. And if you would like to say a few words before Counselor Carson reads and presents the proclamation.
So I'm Delzia Worley, the Chief Operating Officer with San Luis Valley Federal Bank. And we really appreciate council taking our consideration to recognize this as Community Banking Month. Community banks play a really pivotal role in our community. And from financing to deposits to just what they give back and they can partner with. And we appreciate the support of council and the community. For San Luis Valley Federal Bank personally, celebrating 125 years of being a part of this community is super exciting for us. And we recognize the work that you play as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Joe Martinez, President and Chief Lending Officer of San Luis Valley Federal Bank. Mayor, City Council, thank you for the proclamation today, and thank you for being such a great partner with the community banks in town, not only San Luis Valley Federal, but all the community banks. And as a board member for the Independent Community Bankers of Colorado, ICBC for short, we just want to thank you as well. Sometimes community banks go there's an untold story of how we play a vital role in our community. And I just want to thank you for all the support and what you've done and for being a viable partner with us.
Okay, well, thank you, and we appreciate everything you all do as well. So we're going to go ahead and have Counselor Carson read that proclamation, then we'll come down and present it to you.
Thank you, guys. Whereas community banks play a vital role in fostering economic growth, supporting local businesses, and serving the financial needs of individuals and families. And whereas community banks are deeply rooted in the fabric of our community, providing personalized service, local decision-making, and a commitment to the well-being of their customers. And whereas community banks contribute to the vibrancy and resilience of our local economy by reinvesting in the communities they serve, thereby creating jobs, fostering entrepreneurship, and promoting economic opportunity. And whereas community banks demonstrate a strong commitment to financial literacy and education, empowering individuals with the knowledge and tools they need to make informed financial decisions and achieve their financial goals. And whereas community banks uphold the principles of integrity, transparency, and accountability, earning the trust and confidence of their customers through their unwavering dedication to ethical business practices and community reinvestment. And whereas the city of Alamosa recognizes the invaluable contributions of community banks to the prosperity and well-being of our community. and acknowledges the importance of supporting and celebrating these essential financial institutions. Now therefore, let it be resolved that Ty Coleman, Mayor of the City of Alamosa, and on behalf of the entire City Council, proclaim the month of April as Community Banking Month in the City of Alamosa, and encourage all the residents to join us in recognizing and celebrating the contributions of community banks to our community. Thank you,
All right.
guys.
Okay, thank you so
Actually,
much.
Joe's the one that sold me my first house here, so he's been doing it for a long
This is
time.
appropriate, awesome.
Are you saying I'm old?
I was already old when I bought the house.
Okay, Liz, you need to go, there you go. I saw you. 1, 2, 3.
Okay, that brings us to the next proclamation. Counselor Hensley is going to read this proclamation because she is on the tree board. And I believe, Adam, are you going to be the one to come up there? You can go ahead and say a few things if you like. I know you have an update coming up after that probably too, right?
Yeah, we'll be providing an update shortly, but
Okay,
so yeah, thanks for being willing to do the proclamation. As a reminder, this is one of the annual requirements for being a Tree City USA. Stand a little closer to this thing. And we're actually celebrating this before the governor does, because the governor celebrates it on this Friday. So this Friday is Colorado's celebration of Arbor Day. And the other part of the celebration that we have to do is some sort of observance. And so on May 9th at 4:30, and I have some flyers here for the public as well, as we'll be doing our planting project. So you're invited to come out and participate with us to help continue the celebration for the year.
okay. Thank you. Counselor Hensley?
So I have to say that I think this is the third or fourth year I've had the honor to read this. And Dr. Seuss is one of my favorite authors. And whenever I do this, I feel like I'm Lorax and I'm speaking for the trees. But anyway, in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees. And this holiday, called Arbor Day, was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska. And Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world. And trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce life-giving oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees are a renewable resource, giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products. And whereas trees in our city increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community. And whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. Now therefore, Ty Coleman, Mayor of City of Alamosa, does hereby proclaim Thursday, May 9th, 2024 as Arbor Day in the City of Alamosa, and urges all citizens to celebrate Arbor Day and to support efforts to protect our trees and woodlands, and urges all citizens to also plant trees to gladden the heart and promote the well-being of this and future generations.
Right, thank you, Counselor Hensley. We'll come down and present.
I know.
Okay, that brings us to the next item on the agenda, Alamosa Tree Board Annual Update.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
So I'll give you, in the update, I'm going to walk through our standards of the Tree City USA and just kind of use that as our basis. So reminder, standard one is having a tree board or a forester on staff. So currently in the last year, Melissa Freeman finished up her time on the board and is off, and we kindly got a card ready and sent it to her. So it was, gosh, she was on for 2 or 3 years with us. So that was a good commitment. But the reason she stepped off was because we successfully last year added 3 other folks to the board. So we added Amy Brenneman, who lives just outside of the city but works in city limits. Jamie Guile, who is a high school student, and if you notice in the paper is a Betcher scholar as well. And I think it was a great addition having a high schooler on the board. And so I'm not sure what it took to make that happen. If it was, I never asked if it was her own doing or somebody bugged her, but I would encourage if there's space on any of the boards for getting high schoolers actively engaged in helping the community and doing some civic service. And then we also added Ken Shawcroft, who does not live in town either, but he has a business here and is actually a certified arborist and does some pruning for residents in town as well. So we have a very active tree board right now. We're meeting approximately 6 times a year, every other month during lunch hours. Standard 2 is establishing a tree care ordinance, and none of that has changed in the last year. So there's nothing really to say on that one. Standard 3 is having a community forestry budget with at least $2 per capita spent. I forgot to look at the exact numbers of what we spent this last year, but I can report because this went into the expenses. 49 trees were planted in the city of Alamosa last year. And of that, 24 were associated with a grant and were in parks, most of which right out here in Cole Park. And the others were associated with some of the infrastructure projects, the public works ones in the parking lots and some of those areas. So that's great little additions and improvements around town. And then, of course, we just had the Arbor Day proclamation, and we'll be celebrating, as we talked about, on May 9th at Sunset Park. So this is another grant that we received. City received $5,000. They're matching that with $5,000, and between Sunset and Friends Park, we're going to be planting approximately 30 trees there. So in Sunset, the emphasis is along the areas where the new road was put in last summer. So that'll be some great shade and aesthetics there. And then over at Friends Park, kind of between the playground and the parking lot next door for some aesthetics and hopefully cut down on some of that wind-blown dust coming through the area. I see, get my cheat sheet of notes here too. Other updates that we have done is last year with the street tree cost share program is we approved 9 applicants. There were some we didn't approve because we asked for follow-up information and they didn't provide it. And we had a few folks that applied and weren't residents of the city. And we don't have quite as many applicants this year, but we did some tweaks to it. So each year we're doing this. This is our 4th year. We're learning some little nuances about it. And so for the public, if you're a resident of the city of Alamosa, you can apply for this. It's now a 75% cost share. It needs to be a street tree, so between the sidewalk and the street. But if you don't have a sidewalk in front of your house, I would still encourage you to apply and just make a drawing and explain that in the application. So previously it was 50%, and we've also said, instead of it being It's still the $250 limit, but it's up to $250 with no break for number of trees. So if you wanted to get 3 trees with 75% cost share, you can get 3 trees instead of just the 1. Because we had some applicants last year asking for 2 trees, which kind of like my house makes sense. You have the sidewalk that goes down, and you have 2 little spots on there. And if you want to go for symmetry, is you can get it all in 1 year. We also, as last year, where's my other cheat sheet of notes, compliments of Andy. And because of applying the renewal process for Tree City USA, is they have had for the last about 10 years to get a growth award, you have to accrue points of effort. And last time we did that was actually the year we started getting the street tree cost share program going. But we got the growth award again this year. So we got points for donation account created. So so in our efforts of creating a system where people can contribute towards trees, just similar to benches in parks, that system in place for the city. The restoration work that we're doing at the Toyville Malm Trail system with the goats and some of the revegetation efforts with seeding going on, and then adding new tree board members. And we're going to be making an effort starting this year of looking over that list of what gets us the growth award and use that as a tool for things we might want to achieve this year. Let's see, where's my other notes? Okay. So that's kind of some basics of what's going on. I did bring, sorry, I forgot to mention, for anybody in the public, we have a stack of the street tree cost share application forms here. But I'm going to give you some homework this year. So the homework is, and Heather doesn't know this either, because Andy literally just learned this today too. The homework is, if there was a large pot of money, and we're going to save between $20,000 and $250,000 with no match, minus in-kind stuff that we can count, to plant or improve trees in some fashion in the city of Alamosa, what would you want to do? Because our agency is rolling out within a few weeks a new grant program that the city of Alamosa is applicable for, that we can apply for and enhance the value. So think about that, get back to the tree board, get back to Liz, let us know, and the application isn't due till the end of July, so we have plenty of time, but put those thinking caps on and let's take advantage of this opportunity.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you. We have some council members who would like to ask some questions, if you don't mind. Councilor Young V. Hill.
Adam, thanks for coming up again and giving us a presentation. I always look forward to hearing the updates on the trees in Alamosa. On the cost share program, is it only a set amount, like you can only choose from these set of trees, or can it be any tree?
It can be any tree, and it's actually not just planting trees. It can be tree maintenance. It can be coming up with a tree care plan. It can be coming up with a education program to get students informed about how to properly care for trees. There's actually a whole variety of things it can cover, but that's why I kind of left it homework, as how the trees would benefit town in general.
Okay, thank you. And then is there on our website, or do you have information, because it's kind of planting season now, a list of trees that would be really good and would fit our climate that people can plant?
We need to transition. This is a homework item we've talked about for the last year. We need to transition the old information that was on the alamosatrees.net website, which is still relevant, that was done by a former tree board member, Marilyn Lozer, to some location on the city's website. So I would reference you to alamosatrees.net for now until we can make that transition happen.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Young V. Hill. Councilor Hensley.
So I think one of the questions Councilor Vigil was trying to ask, so when they do the 75-25 split, is there a list of trees they have to pick?
Oh, got it.
And
Sorry.
no, I think that was a good answer. It was good. It answered gave us some new ideas. So I thought that was great, actually. But I wanted to make sure, in the sense of, can they pick any tree? And if I remember correctly, we look at it, and if it's not appropriate, you make suggestions. Is that how you've been doing it?
Yeah, they can pick any tree, but in the application, they're supposed to say what type of tree and explain where they're going to put it. So then we can we can make a decision on top of that. So for example, if they wanted to put a cottonwood directly under power lines, we're gonna say, no, that doesn't make sense. Maybe consider a crabapple.
And then I'll just add one more thing. So I just want to say, I've been on the tree board for some time, and then I think I took a year where I wasn't on it, but I'm glad to be back. So it's a great passionate group, and like I say, it's really neat to actually really notice and observe the trees. And it shouldn't have taken the tree board for that to happen for me. So just everybody should take a look at trees and enjoy them.
Okay, all right. Well, we thank you so much for your presentation. It was very helpful.
Yeah, thanks for supporting trees.
Okay, you're
May-
welcome.
Mayor, I got one more.
Sure.
And it might not be for Adam, but maybe
Mhm.
our team is, here in the last month or so, a company, I don't know which one, maybe Asplund, or I don't know. They do, and they go and they cut tree branches back for power line mitigation. And some trees just get crushed, like everything is just taken down. Do people have any recourse against that? Because I've gotten phone calls from people who their tree is literally cut in half because
So I'll let the city attorney answer most of this, but correct me if I'm wrong. I think when we renegotiated our franchise, at least with Charter, we incorporated best practices from tree pruning, but I'm not sure our Excel franchise has similar language in it.
Well, I'm not sure it does either. Charter for sure did. That was the most recently renegotiated franchise. I think Excel does, and we have an ordinance that those franchises actually reference. And so, even if it's not in the franchise, I would submit that any company doing commercial pruning like that needs to comply with our ordinance.
So I would recommend, if they want to call the Public Works Department, and then we can communicate with whichever utility provider that's in the right of way. It's going to depend on the language, so I don't want to raise expectations too much. But I don't think it's something a private property owner could probably take on.
And
Okay.
I'll provide a little bit more clarification is that the company they're actually using currently is Arbor Works. They're actually staying over the Days Inn. They've been there for like the last 9 months because they're based in California. But most of the utility companies in the country, when they hire out companies to do the pruning, is they have certified arborists on staff. So despite the trees often looking butchered, because they actually are doing the best they can and following industry standards on it. Unfortunately, sometimes when you had that big tree planted in the wrong location, they have limited options of what they can do because the power must flow. That is their big mantra from the power company. And yeah, unfortunately, sometimes it's not as aesthetically pleasing as we would like.
And is it possible they're probably cutting where it needs to be cut for both the power lines and the health of the tree?
Correct. Yeah, that's what the certified arborist on staff would make sure they're doing.
Okay.
I just looked up our ordinance. It's 21-5-307, but it is applicable to trees within the public right of way. So we don't have an ordinance that regulates what people can do on their own property, private property, or what power companies can do on someone's own private property with respect to that.
so can a,
But the franchise may address that depending on who it is.
can these power companies send in these contractors to people's backyards where there's power lines? Because in the old part of town, right in here, a lot of the power's in the backyard. And they just go to their backyard and start cutting up a tree?
So typically, to be honest, what they typically do is they address the main power lines between the poles, and the lines between the pole and the house is typically the homeowner's responsibility for maintenance. So I've never actually seen them go into somebody's backyard unless they're asked to go into their backyard. I mean, there might be some situations where they haven't, but that's typically how it's operated around the country with utility lines.
It's hard to make brushing statements because it sometimes depends on if there's going to be an easement in that area where they're maintaining it, and then the trees are either in the easement or encroaching onto the easement area. Because there are easements through alleyways and that type of thing. So it's kind of hard to know exactly without picturing what the exact situation is, because the easements aren't always running just along the right of ways. They're sometimes running on alleys and those types of things as well.
Okay, we have Counselor Hensley, then Counselor Carson.
So I know that you are always observant of trees as you move around. So would you say from what, and obviously not everyone, but are you feeling like what they're doing right now, the Arbor company, are they doing a pretty good job? Do you have any major concerns of what you're seeing with the trees from their pruning?
I don't, they're doing what they need to do. They're not abusing the trees. I mean, they literally did ones 100 feet from my house. And they were stuck with this large ash tree that's right under the power line. And there's only so much they can do. It's so much they also inherited from previous companies that had done the pruning. But I haven't seen anything that says you're abusing things and you're not doing it right.
Okay, Counselor Carson?
So typically what I've seen is they will send out a notification crew that goes into that neighborhood and notifies everybody that's gonna have a tree affected. But I will advise 1,000% for the homeowner to call Excel and to ask questions as to why. They came into my yard 2 years ago. We're gonna cut an elm tree that me and my daughter planted when she was little. We're adamant that it had to be cut. I told them, no, you're not gonna cut it. It's not even 10 feet from the power line. I said, I need to speak to somebody above you. And so I did that. They left mad, and I came home a month later and the power lines were gone. They had a plan to actually remove the power lines in that neighborhood, so cutting my tree down would have been 100% pointless. So I'm just saying, from my point is, as a homeowner, calling us is good, but you should do your due diligence and call the power company and just go through. That crew's usually they do a pretty good thorough work of the neighborhood. They'll walk through and ask. And as a homeowner, you have the right to question, especially if they're gonna be in your property. But in the right of way, you really don't. Once Excel has an easement or the right of way, sorry, your tree's gonna get cut. But in your property, call, for sure, call them.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Counselor Carson. Okay, have any other questions? Thank you so much.
I will leave the cost share form and some of the flyers for the tree planting out at the kiosk where you come in.
Okay, thank you.
I'd just like to say I'm excited about the grant because I'm a tree girl. So I love trees and books. You got my attention. So
Awesome. Good deal, Ms. Sanchez. All right, that brings us to the next item on the agenda, consent calendar A. Counselor, Yanvijo.
Mayor, I move that we approve consent calendar A.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any further comments? Okay, if not, please start voting. Okay, Ms. Martinez.
The motion carried unanimously.
Okay, great. Brings us to the next item on the agenda under regular business, presentation from outside agencies. Tonight, we have presentations from 3 different outside agencies. The first one, we have Visit Alamosa, who's here to share some good news with us. So come on up to the podium.
Good evening, council. Kel Mortensen with Visit Alamosa Director. We have,
Hi, I'm Samantha Bogle. I see very many familiar faces. I also see unfamiliar faces. So it is a absolute pleasure to be here in front of you all tonight.
Thank you.
Samantha is the communications specialist for Visit Alamosa and a treasurer that we will guard greatly and responsible for some of the good news we're sharing tonight. I am Elizabeth Sumner, the Destination Development Director, and as always, appreciative of the partnership between our organizations.
so we were here a little over a month ago and excited about a nomination from USA Today and the best small town cultural scene. So we're back tonight If you don't know already, can now officially say we are the best small town cultural scene as defined by USA Today. So, yeah.
Okay, we got.
In America, if you want to take it a step further.
So thank you, thank you. I don't think the applause is needed. Really, what we want to come and make sure that we know is that this is very much a community win. It's not just the voting was good. We still strongly believe that we are a very unique and good, best small town cultural scene. But it goes to all the partners. It goes to the city and what you guys are able to do in the Artscape program and all the partnerships that we have there, the organizations, the nonprofits that operate here that give us, we're really just a spokesperson. All these assets exist and then we get to promote it and help do these things. So thank you. Thanks for the continued partnership that we receive from the city. We enjoy working with it, but it's a big win and we're definitely going to capitalize on this and leverage it. And we have now rights to a graphic that will be placed on almost everything that we get. And some cool videos that we'll do. It's really just beginning on this. Now that it's official, we're opening up the floodgates on some of that stuff. But I will turn it over to Beth on programs or Sam on anything you guys with this. They really did a lot. The magnets were all over town. The Instagram posts, everything to make sure that we were right up there and competitive and maybe a little too competitive from what I'm hearing, but just enough.
No, and not here tonight is Savannah Schlafman. She is an incredible marketing director and she ran amazing campaigns for us to make this possible. None of it would have been possible without the community. So thank you guys for sharing, for voting, for anything that you did for this campaign. It is amazing. And I'm so excited to have been a part of it, even just a small piece. And then, aside from that, National Parks Month is in full swing. And April 6th, we hosted the Share the Love Community Mural Project. Beth Sumner coordinated this beautiful event with the team. And I see so many faces here tonight that came out to this event and painted these beautiful murals. They're going to be an evergreen, beautiful display at the Colorado Welcome Center in our new parking lot. I sincerely hope to see as many of you that can come on April 27th at 1 p.m. to the Colorado Welcome Center for the mural unveiling of those 12 beautiful pieces that were painted by the community. It's a really beautiful project, and I could not be more proud of the team and the community for coming out and showing up the way that they did. On top of that, Casey McCoy works with Beth Sumner, has created a very beautiful, large heart mural that will also be unveiled as part of this event. Following this event, please stick around, head on into the Colorado Welcome Center and join us for the Youth Art Showcase. And if you guys have youth that would want to be a part of this, submissions are still open. It is basically just a big project to showcase our youth artists and the love for the sand dunes. And that will be on display until April 5th or May 5th, if I am not mistaken. So please come out and come see us and share the love for this beautiful park that we just happen to have in our backyard.
You can see why Samantha is our PR specialist, sharing all the love and all the amazing news. I will echo what Samantha said and what Kel said, and this was such a community-driven grassroots win for Alamosa. The cultural scene here is incredible, and we could not have done what we did and bring home this win if it were not for the leadership, the grassroots efforts, the amazing cultural scene that we do have here. And so we just appreciate that so very much. And we saw a lot of familiar faces at the Share the Love Project. We appreciate that so very much and hope that you'll join us on the 27th, as Sam said. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you for the partnership.
Well, thank you. We're going to have some council members who probably have some comments. We have Councilor Dominguez.
Congratulations. And I was at the Share the Love Mural Project. It was awesome. I took all my grandkids along with some other youth. You guys did an awesome job at that event. It was very easy to go from one mural to the other, the paint codes. I mean, it was really easy for us to just maneuver through all the artwork. The kids loved it, and I hope to see more of this. We are truly fans of art in our neighborhood, and you guys are just doing an awesome job. So we'll definitely see you as long as our schedules allow us on the 27th. So thank you, guys.
Okay, anybody else have any comments before I wrap things up?
Mayor,
Okay, go ahead.
can I just say, I want to thank you so much for putting the videos together too, because I don't know if people, I- when we live here, if we get so used to the culture and what that encompasses. And so showing like the local foods and the bands and the Cinco de Mayo and the history and all of that in that video, it's just such a great way to show why we got this award and to help people remember this is everything we have and why it's great to live here. So thank you.
And I'll wrap things up to just thank you all so much to give us something to be proud of about in our community. There are so many people who saw that and they did like a double take, like, what? Yes, because of the work that you all are doing, which is very important. And it was a collaborative effort. Speaking of being competitive, Ms. Sanchez is very competitive. So during the voting time, she would often, before she would respond to any text or email that I sent to her, she would remind me that I needed to make sure that I voted that day. So
It worked.
we would,
Well, if he was going to be on my team, he needed to pull his weight. like-
that's right. So I want to let you all know we really appreciate that. And the mural project was just amazing to be able to go there and see so many people in the community out there painting. And thank you for making it so easy for me by having the numbers and the paint cans with the numbers. I thought I was one of those real famous artists after I left there. So thank you so much for that. And thank you for the First Fridays and all the things that you all do in the community to bring us together and then also to showcase what goes on in Alamosa. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. All righty. That brings us to the next item on the agenda, an annual update from the Boys and Girls Club. Oh, you're already ready. Thanks. Take care.
Heather's photographer tonight. She's the Vanna White giving
Yeah,
you all the
thank you, thank you,
materials.
thank you.
Just really appreciate the support. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to send my congratulations to the two newest council members, Councilwoman V. Hill and Councilmember Dominguez. Thank you very much for being here and supporting the work of the Boys and Girls Clubs. I really am excited about what you guys are going to do in these roles and positions. Most of you know, I've done this presentation a few times now, but the Boys and Girls Club was founded in Alamosa in 1992, and it was started by young people for young people. Over the past 25 plus years, we've served many of your children, many of your neighbors, and perhaps some of you. We had in 2023, 770 members across all of our sites, served over 2,000 young people across the San Luis Valley and about 500 here in Alamosa. With the contribution from the city of Alamosa, that support in the amount of about $40 per individual in Alamosa to serve in out of school time. And there's been a lot of impact. It's been a really great year for us. I feel like I get up here every year and I'm like, wow, it was a really amazing year. So I don't know that I'll be able to top it in 2024, but we'll see what we got. I think the first thing that I want to highlight is we've really focused on work-based learning programs, partnered with Adams State University and 11 different school districts. We placed over 200 young people in paid internships, working in restaurants, working in cosmetology places, working at KRZA and businesses like the Arcade downtown. That gives them real life experience and pays them along the way. The number one thing that we heard from young people was, we want to have a job. We want to feel like we're doing something. These people asked for my resume and I put a resume into a place like Sonic and they say, you don't have any job experience. And then they would come back to us and say, where do I get job experience if you won't hire me? So internships oftentimes are that first step where they can be guided along the way and supported in their work journey. Really excited about that partnership. And we have some cool things coming up in the future for that as well. Many of you know that the big conversation that we had with you recently is about fifth day programs. Wouldn't be a surprise to you to know that Alamosa School District, the largest district in the San Luis Valley and the one that serves most people in Alamosa, went to a 4-day school week. We knew that this was going to have massive impact on our community. It's impacted the city. You all have made some great selections to let your people work 4-day school weeks or 4-day weeks if they would like to accommodate those young people. Boys and Girls Club we didn't feel like we could direct that conversation. We felt like it was our role to partner and respond to whatever it was our community needed. I think it's really funny, Holly. I don't know if you noticed this, but you didn't start the clock, I don't think, for Adam or for the Q&A, but it's appropriate that you started it for me, so I appreciate that, knowing that I have about 7 minutes left. So we were able to grow our programs to be able to serve those young people. We started a brand new program at the K2 building just to make sure that there was age-appropriate programming with those 6 to 8-year-olds where they didn't have to be in spaces to hear the kind of conversations that the 9, 10, 11, and 12-year-olds were having. I do have some bad news, but really it's good news. Not really good news, but it's learning news. The bad news is that we moved our teen center from the arcade. You all may remember that we started the No Limit Arcade with our teens because they told us that they wanted a space to be. And we just saw those numbers start to drop back down again. The feedback that we heard from them was they missed the gym. They missed the buzz of being in the club. They missed the little kids kind of looking up to them. And so we listened to them and we moved them back into that space. If at any point they want to move back into that arcade, we're happy to do it. But right now, the arcade is operating entirely as a youth-run entrepreneurship project. And we're really proud of that. So the opportunity for those young people to do their cash sheets, their daily totals, to do inventory, to do pricing, hours of operation, all that stuff that we think is a really important skill for them to develop. You also will know that in 2023, we accidentally purchased a building. We had grown our administrative staff. We didn't have space for everybody. And so we bought the building at 6th and San Juan. I hope the council will recognize we've invested a lot into making that a beautiful looking building that really reflects the sort of culture that Alamosa was just recognized for. So we're doing that not just for our staff, but also as a center for collaborative innovation with other nonprofit partners. The thing that's right on the horizon is we're going to be opening up a commissary kitchen and a training center for young people in culinary arts. So being able to provide that to food trucks, catering services, and then train many of our young people whose first job is in food service to be able to do that safely and get higher paying jobs when they start. You also know about our partnership with the Early Care and Learning Center. So over the past couple of years, we've been in planning and design. We are in our active fundraising stage now for the Early Care Center, which will be on our campus at our 1115 site at 10th and 285. And we're really excited about the progress that we're making there. We've generated over $3.6 million. We still have some millions of dollars to go. So if anybody wants to make a contribution, make the check out to Boys and Girls Clubs of San Luis Valley, put childcare in the memo. Many of you also were able to attend, and thank you for supporting our Youth of the Year event. Just a few weeks ago, Councilman Dominguez was our keynote speaker. I think you did a wonderful job. I really appreciate everything that you do in support of our young people, not just at the Boys and Girls Club, but across the entire community. And I don't know if you had an opportunity to see the newspaper, but there's a particularly good-looking young man who was selected this year. Mason and I just got back from the statewide competition. He did not win the statewide selection, but he made friends with every single one of those young people, and they've been in the group chat blowing it up all hours of night. So he's the kind of person that's going to see people right where they're at, make a connection and make them feel at home. And really, that's worth more to me than a statewide winning. I want to take a minute to tell you about some challenges that we have coming up. Our last year, we had a $4 million budget for the Boys and Girls Clubs of the San Luis Valley. When I started, that was $485,000. We've grown significantly, but a lot of that has become because of ARPA relief funds. So we lost our ESSER funds. We're suspending our 21st Century ELO funds. We're looking at about $1.2 million of revenue that we won't have for this coming year that we've been able to enjoy in the past. We've been able to expand to a lot of sites. We've been able to serve more young people, and we're going to have to trim down in 2024 and 2025, like many other folks who relied on that ARPA money. And so it's going to be more individual contributions. It's going to be partnerships like the ones that we continue to have with the city of Alamosa that really make a difference in the lives of young people. Your $20,000 investment is a crucial piece of that because we take it, we match it, then we match that match, and then we match that match. And pretty soon we have a large operating budget. We'll be able to do amazing things. I also want to recognize that the city decided to move your funding from HEAL, which is healthy eating, active lifestyles, into general operating. The more flexibility that you have with those kinds of partnerships, the more that we can put that money where it needs to be most. And our biggest place where we're investing right now is in prevention, youth homelessness prevention, substance abuse prevention, and a lot of the behavioral health stuff. I'll take just a minute to share. Youth mental health is on my mind. I sat with the Attorney General yesterday, and he talked about our epidemic of loneliness in this country. And we see it every day at the Boys and Girls Club. Young people who don't know how to connect, they don't know how to be in social situations. And so when you're at a club, you got to put your device down. You're not allowed to be on it. You got to make connections with other people, and it's so crucial. And it's on my heart because my nephew's best friend, he's 13 years old, completed suicide at his home with a gun 2 weeks ago. And it was a story, it's a sad story, but it is one that could have been prevented many different times along the way. He felt like he was an outcast, didn't fit in. He was bullied online, so he started to be a class clown. Got in trouble in school, His parents grounded him. He didn't have any connections to talk to those friends, those supports. He didn't have people that he could talk with in his life. He had access to a weapon in the home. And he made a rash decision. And that's going to be with my 13-year-old nephew for the rest of his life. So things that you do, the investments that you make into programs like Boys and Girls Club make a significant difference. And I want you to know that every day that we have a young person who has a connection, who has a relationship, that's an investment that's worth more than gold. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I have the lights are lit up here, so I'm not for sure who started first. So I'll start off at the end with Councilman Dominguez, and then we'll go to Councilor Hensley, and then Councilor Jackie V. Hill, and then Councilor Carson.
I want to start by saying thank you to Aaron and the Boys and Girls Club for all the work they do. There's so many different things that I've seen they've stepped into. It's not just a facility. The partnerships they have with people across the whole San Luis Valley are huge. Me and Aaron have sat in a tremendous amount of meetings, and it's good for me to hear that they're on the same level as parents and people in community, that the issues look the exact same with an entity like yours. And I just want to thank you guys. I just want you to know that from our perspective at Shooting Stars, we are working really hard on the suicide stuff. We'll be all gone next week. I'm taking a full staff to be trained for the program me and you both have been working on. It's not easy, and like Aaron said, this all comes with funds. This all has to do with money at the end of the day, and it's horrible that we have to base the lives that we lose on finances. But unfortunately, this is what it is. Second, the loneliness, sometimes kids just need mentors and trusted adults, and everybody in this room and everybody in anywhere could be that. There is no degree that you need to do this. And I think a lot of people think they do need credentials in order to be just a trusted person, and you don't. And I'm here just to make sure that that's loud and clear, because entities like the Boys and Girls Club need all the help they can get to help make these kids feel a certain way. So thank you guys. I appreciate everything you do.
Thank you, Councilor Dominguez, Councilor Hensley, and then Councilor Jackie V. Hill, and Councilor Carson.
So I think it's no secret the passion and love I have for Boys and Girls Club. I'll start off, obviously, my two granddaughters, I say it every year, they love the Boys and Girls Club, and both in different ways. Between the internships, the Zen room. So we talk about taking time and space, having people there to support that and saying it's time, to do that. Yoga, all the trips, all the things they can do. The family nights. And so my grandkids are always reminding me, it's family night. We can't have dinner at home tonight because we're going to go to family night. So all of those things. So I can tell you firsthand the things I see. And obviously when I go to pick up the girls, I will say that also the amount of positive things and the growth you've taken by having the COVID money and things like that is remarkable. And I do strongly feel it's our time so that obviously, I'm sure there's some things that have to be shaved down, but there's so much good that came out of this. So I support as much as we all can in the community is things that we can do. So hopefully we don't have to shave as much down and continue to expand and grow because it's making a huge difference. And we have to invest in our youth. And like I say, all the positive things you're doing, it's not just about having fun stuff, but it is also even that idea of not being always on our phones, things like that. Taking time for ourselves, teaching things about how to eat right, how to take care of yourself, and even having people on staff there that if somebody needs a counselor or things like that. So I just want to commend and support 100%.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
Thank you, Counselor Hensley. Counselor Jackie Vigil.
I just wanted to make a couple comments. I live right by the Boys and Girls Club and I've seen it grow throughout the years. And it's a wonderful program for our community and it's needed in our community. And I'm excited to see that you're working with youth with mental health issues because I know since COVID, I mean, kids were isolated for that whole year and they have a hard time dealing with social situations. So I'm excited that you guys are addressing those mental health needs. And then I'm really excited about your culinary program. So I think, you know, that would be something really good for kids in our valley. So thank you so much for everything you do.
Thank you, Counselor.
Thank you, Counselor Jackie Vigil. Counselor Carson.
Aaron, just to echo what everybody said, thank you very much for what you guys do daily for not only the kids, the parents, everybody that you support. Thank you for sharing your story on your nephew. I'm sorry, that's awful. And yeah, you don't ever get over that. But, you know, just along the lines of what you said about disconnecting them from their devices and that internet, you know, the reality is that that's a big contributing factor to the suicide in our kids. And so anything you could do to create programs or programming around them being away from the internet, you know, I live and breathe it every day. It's part of my daily life, and it's just as great of a tool as it is for what we do. And, you know, everything we do to collaborate in these great things, it's a cesspool for kids. And you know, touching on the whole thing of being isolated for the pandemic, it created a hole that a lot of kids didn't get out of. And so keep pushing that. And, you know, we'll keep pushing for you and keep up the great work. You've done awesome work. I mean, you know, it's grown 10 times since you started. Keep it up, and yeah, prayers for your nephew. So thank you, Aaron. And we do support you. We just bought a big Caterpillar.
That's exactly right. Yeah, thank you for the Caterpillar. I should have said that. It's amazing. 5 times a day, people are out there taking selfies.
Yeah, it's
It's crazy.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Good work.
Good deal. Okay. Well, I don't see any other lights on, so I'll wrap everything up from this point. Thank you so much, Aaron. I send my condolences to your nephew's friend and what he went through, and really sorry to hear about that. I want to thank you for everything that you're doing in the community to help out with the youth. Congratulate you with your son Mason becoming the Youth of the Year in the San Luis Valley, and that was amazing. I was fortunate to see Councilor Dominguez deliver the keynote speech, which was very powerful. So keep up the great work. The thing I also want to just commend you on, when it came to the arcade, you said that you listened to the young people to hear what they thought. And that's good you did that instead of just making a decision. You listened to them to make them feel valued. So appreciate that.
Thank you. I work for them at the end of the day.
Okay. And congratulations. Well, I don't know if it's congratulations or not, but from 400,000 to 4 million, that's a big, huge jump. Takes a lot.
It's been a whole team. Thank you,
Okay.
Council. Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Mayor.
Thank you. Okay. All righty. That brings us to the next item on the agenda, annual update from the South Central Colorado Seniors.
And I'll just point out to Aaron that we're setting the 10-minute clock for this presentation as well.
Thank you.
All right, if we're gonna get into this, the distinction is that the tree board is a city board to which we don't apply the limits.
Okay.
And they've been told ahead of time and browbeaten.
All righty. Thank you for being here today.
Well, thank you for having me another year. It's hard to believe that another year is around the corner and it just keeps coming. But first of all, thank you for the partnership that we've shared with you after all these years and the support that we have with the council and Mayor Coleman. So thank you very much. For those of you that don't know who I am, I'm Monica Wolf and I'm with South Central Colorado Seniors. First and foremost, we are not a senior center. And I know so many people confuse us for a senior center, but we are the local area agency on aging. We are not a government entity, but we are under the state unit on aging. We've been around for 40 plus years with people still thinking that we're a senior center. So it's been hard to get our name out there and to really advertise what we're doing. So, but I will say that we are an organization that does support and advocates for our senior population, the most vulnerable, as we know. It's been a little difficult, although this year, the one positive thing is that we have seen our senior population coming out and about. And so that's really important because the one group that definitely will not move about if they don't have to, and especially after COVID, is our senior population. And so seeing them out and about is wonderful. Let's see. The services that we provide, and we do offer a lot of services. As you know, you probably know us for our nutrition program, but we do offer a lot of other services that tie in with nutrition. And so I know nutrition right now for seniors, for youth, for anyone really is huge. We've got the homeless out there that are in need of those type of services too, especially nutrition. I will be the first one to say that in our older adult population, because they're so vulnerable, that nutrition is the start of things to keep them healthy and safe and at home, but it's not the only thing. And so the other services that we have, we do bring them in and work with the nutrition program to keep them at home, such as homemaker services or material aid. You know, they may need safe medical equipment to keep them at home. So they're not having to move out, especially those that are alone at home. I will, this year has been kind of a struggle for us in some ways, and a lot of it is funding issues that we've had. 3 years ago, through the state funding that we got, we were granted monies for 5 years to move on for 5 years. And then 3 years into this grant process, 2 years were taken from us because of the budget constraints with the state governor's office. And so that really hurt us because it was a large amount of money. And so this is our first year going through it without that funding. Next year, I could tell you right now that we are possibly looking at being in a crisis mode just because state and federal funding this year is very thin. Any of you that's listened to the JBC or anything further than that, seniors is not a priority in any of their funding. And so we are going out and we're talking to our representatives, we're sharing stories and sharing examples of how important it is to keep our services strong. And I just really want to radiate that we need that funding. We really need funding. And, you know, we just opened up a new mill site a year and a half ago. And so we want to be able to keep that mill site going. That was in Crestone, a much needed area and much needed mill site. It's a very busy mill site. And in fact, they've asked us to move to 5 days a week instead of 3 days a week. And it just breaks my heart to tell them that I don't know that we can do that. We also, and I'm sorry, it's an emotional moment for me. But about 3 or 4 years ago, we started working with Moms Meals. And those are meals that go out to our seniors in the outlying areas. Who don't have that opportunity because our drivers are outside of the driving area, they're outside of our delivery area. And so we worked with Moms Meals to be able to do that. However, and what they do is they drop ship the meals to the clients. They get 2 weeks at a time and then they call for another order. Moms Meals, for one thing, is going up in price. And so with the funding issues that we're having, we did work with the San Luis Valley County Commissioners Association, talk to them about extra funding just to keep Moms Meals going. And it looks like in June, we're going to have to stop that process because of funding. And so going out and having that conversation with those folks that are already receiving those meals. So there were some positives. There's this year also, as you know, back in 2022, we were granted money for infrastructure and the push for that, and that was through Senate Bill 290. So all that funding came from the Senate bill. And so they were pushing infrastructure so that we could increase services, and that was their main goal. And so we did get $990,000. However, again, by the time we purchased the land, and we did purchase land, and we do have the starts of the building going up, but again, we have a gap there in funds to complete the building. You know, the building it's a beautiful building, and we are increasing our conference room so that not only is it a conference room for our our advisory board and our policy board, but we do want to bring in classes for our seniors, you know, much needed classes. And so we always have to go out and about to look for room to get this done. And so this is an opportunity for us to be able to use our area for our seniors. We have gone out and we're looking, we're working with Adams State University in regards to an internship. And we just had a graduate student that finished his internship with us through South Central Colorado Seniors. And so that was a success. It was also a paid internship. And so, you know, we've been contacted already for this same role through a college student through for the summer months and then on forward. So that's a big plus for us because I think we're going to have to, and we do have to look through intergenerational tactics and you know, it's good for the children, it's good for our seniors. And so that's kind of where we're going. Our volunteerism has grown, working through RSVP. If you're not familiar with that, that's the Volunteer Senior Program. And so they are with Spark the Change out of Denver. And Nancy Harris, if anybody knows Nancy Harris, I work closely with her and on their advisory board. And she has added a lot of volunteers for us. The only drawback with that is they provide volunteers only in the Alamosa area. And so we're visiting with them to see if there's any chance of moving around the valley because it's much needed. So we've seen some increased numbers, the latter part of 2023, at our mill sites and throughout some of our other programs. However, and I'm sure that has to do with the seniors moving about and they're getting out and around. Let's see. Of course, the challenges that we're having is the funding, the increased costs of our nutrition program. The informational packet that I did send around, you'll see some numbers and you'll see where we're at with things and how we're working with the services that we have. We are currently in need of 1 or 2 advisory board meeting or members. And so if anybody's interested or they know of anyone that's interested in being on one of our boards, the advisory board, that would be wonderful. They would just need to contact us. I also definitely look for and ask for donations, mainly to help sustain our services and keep them going. Anybody that knows of grants for infrastructure projects, I am looking into a couple and I have talked to some, but it's much needed to go ahead and complete our project that we're doing. So
Okay.
that's where we are with South Central.
Okay, thank you, thank you. I have a couple lights lit up here, and they're gonna ask you some questions. We'll start off with Counselor Yanvijo.
Thank you, Mayor.
Welcome.
Thank you for your presentation and coming up here every year and giving us an update. Thank you for the services you provide. Can you mentioned this a few times throughout your presentation as the lack of the funding is decreasing. Is there other groups in Alamosa who are maybe competing with the funding that you're getting, and is that affecting you?
Well, no, I will say though that we, through the Moms Mills program, we were running that program from CSBG dollars that we were getting. And so, and we had those for years and years, and it worked out wonderful. But when the fiscal agent changed, there was an issue there, and we were told that our criteria no longer fit their funding criteria. And so, I did go over and above and I did some research and whatnot, and it still seemed that the nutrition and some of the services that we provided were within that criteria. And we've kind of gone back and forth with the fiscal agent. And so, we just lately, I did get an email and they're willing to offer us $30,000 from CSBG dollars. How that's happening, I don't know, but we're grateful and we will take that. But I think that there are some other issues that are going on that are preventing us. And again, I mean, the AAAs around the state of Colorado, and there are 16 of us in different regions. We have written letters. We have, I was at the town hall meeting this last time, talked to the representatives there about state funding. And there's just no conversation about seniors at all. There's no conversations about funding for seniors. And we can write grants but we all know how that goes and the time that it takes to get a grant. I don't know where our funding is going to be this year. They're behind on their funding, the State Unit on Aging, so we won't be notified until May. But we somehow have to keep this program going. And it's near and dear to my heart. And I just sometimes don't know where else to go. If our state and our federal government isn't looking that way and seniors are not important to them, I mean, they're all going to be there. We're all going to be there. And what's going to happen? I included in your packet also just kind of a chart of the different age groups and the generational, where are they going to be in so many years? Where are the baby boomers going to be? They're right there right now. And, I don't know if they just don't think that someday they will be there. And, the needs for our seniors, we see the mobility for those that are around the community, but we don't see the ones that are behind the scenes that can't get out and that are stuck in their homes. And, so those are the things that they don't see and we don't see, or, the general public doesn't see. And so we just have to keep fighting for them.
Mayor,
Okay.
can I add on to Councilmember
Sure.
Vihil's question? You mentioned approaching the joint county commissioner meeting. Are there have you made official requests to the different counties? Are they providing any financial support?
So every year we do get funding from each county. However, the funds that we get there goes towards our match for our federal funds that we get. So that money usually is used for our match and there's not much left over. We did go to the COG also and talk to them. So, there may be some chance to get some funding just for our building, our new building going up. But we just have to keep our services going. And that's our concern. So, but we are looking and we appreciate everything that, that we are getting, definitely. So.
Okay, all right, thank you. Counselor Jackie Beal.
This is also near and dear to my heart, because I do work with, adult protection. And, seniors are our most vulnerable population. And I think we all have to work together to, because we're all gonna get old eventually. And, we don't want to be in crisis ourselves, so I think that's something that we as a community and everything have to take a look at and support your agency definitely, because they are the most vulnerable citizens right now, also kids, but, there's funding out there for kids, and this is the most underfunded population, I think. So.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, thank you, Counselor Jackie Beal. Okay, Counselor Dominguez.
Thank you for everything you do. I could tell this is more than a job for you, and it is stressful. I've heard you mention a lot about state, federal funds, and they are a chore, and I don't think they're ever in the best interest of the people they're supposed to be for. Have you guys partnered with nonprofits or started have any conversations around how a community can help assist in some of these
Um,
things?
So we have with some of the smaller grant, the nonprofits here, Community Health Foundation, we've worked with them also. So we are making more contact with them.
There's a lot of new and innovative funding realms that are coming up, and I think these are being opened up by community. When we are exhausted from begging and asking and squeezing blood from rocks from the people who are supposed to be supporting stuff like this, I think community comes in full force in so many different ways, and I think we all have the ability to fill small gaps, and I've always said that crumbs make a cake, even though we're always just trying to make the big cake right away. So don't give up on what you do, and I would definitely reach out to whoever you can in different communities, and I think all together we'll kind of start finding little paths that cross each other, and I think there can be, I mean, like a 2-day, going from a 5-day to a 3-day meal plan. I mean, I think a 2-day is very feasible for like other entities to pick up, so you don't have to worry about stuff like that. So I'll definitely keep this on my radar, and thanks for coming and presenting.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Wolf, I don't see any other lights on, so I'll wrap this segment up. Thank you so very much for that information. And we look forward to hearing more about the program in the upcoming year. Thank
And
you.
thank you so much for being a support system, part of
You-
that support system.
You're
So.
welcome. Thank you. Okay. All right, council. That brings us to the next item on the agenda. We have Parks and Recreation, second reading and public hearing for ordinance number 4-2024, an ordinance approving official hours for public use of City of Alamosa parks and open space and prohibiting deadly weapons in all parks, open space, and recreation facilities.
All right, good evening, Mayor, Council. This is our second reading. I won't repeat the title as you eloquently said, but just to review, this was a joint effort between PD and ourselves, with the main impetus being improving safety around our parks and also giving law enforcement another tool in their toolbox, if you will, around their jobs. So it does have exceptions, as we've talked about. If there's any questions, I'm certainly here to answer them, but I'll keep it short and sweet for a second reading.
Okay, thank you so much. What we're going to do is open up the second reading and public hearing for ordinance number 4-2024. If we have anyone in the audience who would like to participate in this public hearing, please come up to the podium and state your comments. Okay, I don't see anyone in the audience, so we'll go to the Zoom participants. If there's anyone on Zoom who would like to make any comments in regards to this public hearing, please feel free to raise your hand. Ms. Martinez, if you don't mind giving instructions again of how they can raise their hand.
Yes, sir. If you're on the Zoom app, you'll use the raise hand feature in the bottom of your screen. If you're on a telephone, you'll dial *9. Mayor, I don't see anyone choosing to raise their hand.
Okay, I don't see any hands raised either, so we'll go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back to council for any additional comments or any motions. Counselor Dominguez?
Yes, so when the last time we talked about this, I had to go and unpack it. I understand every aspect of it and I understand the importance of every aspect of it. Because concealed carry is still an option, is one of the reasons why I've been able to separate some of the concerns I have around it. I am very, I guess I speak freely when I say that I have a very fine line when it comes to taking away our right to bear arms. But I do understand why this is being put in front of us. There are some places that there are weapons not allowed, and I agree with the parks and the recreational facilities, courthouses, everything, therefore schools. The open space had me questioning some things because we've grown up here. This might look different in a city. I definitely think we need to entertain who we are and where we're from. Just, I guess maybe a couple weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, you know, the mountain lion scenario, there's been attacks like on the ranch dikes, that area. I think that a little bit more time needs to be spent on that one for safety purposes. If a jogger or we walk on the dike a lot, and if my daughters go alone, we do definitely protect ourselves, whether it's an animal or whatever, open carry, whatever. But I think there are a few instances that that I feel like I need to tread lightly on how I weigh on this, but I definitely am in favor of curfew in the parks, city, recreational spaces. But the open space had me thinking about some things. So I just want to point that out.
Okay, Counselor Dominguez, do you want to ask Andy a question about that? Because this would be the appropriate time to do so.
Well, I guess like they're the way they're all bunched up. I mean, I'm assuming because they're all tied to city spaces, right? The ranch, the dike. So I kind of understand that piece, but I was just thinking it might change the walks for some people, or if people who are jogging don't feel safe out there. I mean, it just, no questions, just this was probably the first issue that I had to really think about. And I
And
just wanted to express that.
on second reading, depending on discussion and the thought that Counselor Dominguez has put out there, you can pick and choose on some of this. You can't head an entirely new direction because it wasn't posted for an entirely new direction. But if there is a piece that this opens up discussion to where maybe council's comfortable with all the rest of it, but want continued dialogue on the open space, or a majority of you are still comfortable with the open space restrictions, but you can untangle some of this if that is the discretion of council.
Okay, thank you for the clarification, Ms. Sanchez. Okay, I don't see any other lights on, so, oh, Counselor Yountville.
Carson.
Oh, sorry, Counselor Carson.
What defines open space according to this ordinance? Like what, give me a few examples of what we're talking. Trails?
Trails, even, it's a little confusing in that, like, we'd consider the Riparian Park open space, but the ranch is open space, Riparian Park, trails, that kind of,
The Mom Trail as well. Loop, I just wanted to name the Mom Trail.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, well, no, Blanca Vista is a park. I mean, yeah. At least the pond and the perimeter trail and the dog park is park. Yeah.
Okay, Counselor Yountville.
I acknowledge your concerns and unpacking some of that stuff, Mr. Dominguez, on some of the things. I think you said it with the concealed carry, it kind of takes care of that. So with that, if there's no further discussion or questions, I would say we move to approve ordinance number 4-2024 on second reading.
Can we modify the ordinance now?
Sure.
Yes, yes,
So
that's what I.
I would have to change.
Oh, that's
Right.
not counselor's, that's not his motion, so we need to see if there's a second, unless Counselor Hill wanted to modify the ordinance with his motion.
So Counselor Hensley has to has an excuse emergency.
So there's a motion on the floor. I think I would like a second, and then we can discuss it during discussion.
So we have a motion. Counselor Krebs.
So we can move to discussion as it's written. I second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Now it's time for open discussion. Okay, Counselor Carson.
So from a aesthetic and, I mean, there's a safety aspect, but typically I think anybody who has their concealed carry is pretty safety conscious. They've gone through the gauntlet. My concern is with the open space, and I would ask that this ordinance be modified to allow open carry in the open space areas. Again, I'd be fine with allowing just the concealed carry in the city parks and facilities, but I would rather, you know, there's a lot of people that don't have their concealed carry and then open carry, and that's how they feel, and that's their God-given right according to them. And so when they walk their dog on the dike, they're open carrying. And so that would be my only ask, is that we would modify to, because the concealed carry applies everywhere right now, right? So that would be my ask, is the open carry on the open space area, trails, park. Just because I think it's gonna affect a lot of people that currently do not have a concealed carry, and they do open carry, and those are perfectly legal, law-abiding citizens as well. So that's my ask of the ordinance, that I would support it in that respect. The current language, I will not support. Thank you.
Okay, Counselor Dominguez.
I just want to clarify why I came to this conclusion, because in open spaces, when I think of the dike and the ranch, there's like not a whole bunch of people all the time. And I know in the parks, there's usually traffic. City spaces, there's usually people, but when somebody is jogging by themselves, or I have 4 daughters, so they all use weapons. They've all been trained to use guns. They're shooters. They've all went through all that. And I think it makes people nervous when, if they do jog or walk out in a space where it's more secluded, I think it might make them nervous that they're breaking the law now, and when they're just trying to be cautious to protect themselves. So that's why I had an issue with open space. I understand all the language with everything else, and if you really need to have a gun in the park, you can get a carry concealed. I understand that piece. So I just really was worried about the secluded areas, and people and their safety, how they choose to protect themselves in them areas. It might change what that looks like for them.
You know,
Thank you.
with the talk around weapons, it might be more appropriate that Captain Spangler's up here.
Yes.
But I'll tell you, most of the runners and joggers that I know use the sprays, whether it's bear, pepper, whatever it is, personally.
I was gonna make the suggestion, if we could have Captain Spangler make any comments that he thinks, because we're still trying to make sure we're considering the safety of law enforcement. So go ahead.
So in reference to what Councilman Dominguez is saying, as far as open carry and open spaces, as far as law enforcement's perspective, is that what you're kind of asking?
That's what I'm asking.
Yes. I mean, open carry is legal, and we don't have an issue necessarily on open spaces as well.
Can I just make a point? And the only reason I bring up the open carry, you know, you bring up your daughters,
Can you do into the microphone, please? Thank you.
the open carry is a deterrent. If you have a female or a male, it doesn't matter. If there's somebody's walking their dog or jogging or whatever, and there's a potential criminal or an attacker, not an animal, and they see that open carry, that's a deterrent right off the bat. That's not our mark today. Let's pick someone else. And that's one of the main reasons I bring it, because of the lack of people in some of these open space areas when you have people alone that have open carry. That's the only reason I bring it up. And you're right, in the park, guns freak people out. If you have a family there, that may really scare somebody. So it's not necessarily appropriate. I do not believe that at all. And from a law enforcement standpoint, I think seeing that somebody has a gun is always a positive than not knowing if they do. I mean, on an open trail, you would see that from far too. I mean, I don't know that. I'm not an officer, so I'm just saying, I think it's also a deterrent. So that was one of my points.
I guess if I could add one more thing is there, regardless of what the ordinance says or this reading says, right? There's still law that says you have to be 21 or older to carry a handgun. Now, with that being said, if they are a law-abiding citizen, 21 and older, I don't want to get too far into the constitutional rights of what they can and can't do, or open carry or not. What we would encourage is if they are law-abiding over 21 and they want to carry, is to go to a concealed carry class, because it just gives them more resources and more training and experience on how to properly carry and use as well.
Okay, Counselor Jackie Behill, then Counselor Krebs.
I wanted to ask, is there like a rise in incidents, like in the dikes or in the ranch area? Is there problems there?
As
Like
far
as
as
of now?
I'll speak on the law enforcement side of it, and we're not seeing any influx in either direction, for better or worse, in that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because
Oh, go
I'm
ahead.
just saying, because I've always walked there and I've never, well, I don't have a gun, but I've never really felt unsafe. And I don't know, I just didn't even know if there was a lot of need for open carry, I never felt like I was unsafe.
And again, just on the flip side of the coin is, we do periodically get calls on people walking open carry on the dike, which does take away our resources to go contact them to make sure that everything is legit, because it is not the norm for for somebody to be walking with a rifle slung, although legal, across their shoulder.
Because I've never seen nobody carry, open carry when I've been walking, so I was just curious.
Okay, thank you, Counselor Jackie V. Hill. Counselor Krebs?
Hi, guys, a couple of things. So if that portion of this ordinance gets removed, technically in law enforcement, if you see someone walking with a rifle, then that does take away your ability to walk up and engage with, why are you carrying a rifle in the middle of nowhere type thing? Or would it be as needed basis?
Absolutely, it would be as needed. We would get the call and we would have to look into it a little more. Just because we get a call doesn't mean we'll go and contact them, because we do understand the open carry side of it.
Okay, thank you. And my only other, I just want to make sure that we're being very specific here, because the recommended action is to prohibit deadly weapons. So I just want to make sure that we're only discussing open carry in open spaces and not the broad area. I still want the deadly weapons in there. And reading over it, even the deadly weapons, the axes, the bows and arrows, if they're walking over to the archery range, obviously, it's one of those common sense things type situations. But yeah, I'm just making sure that we're being very focused on A, open areas, and B, the open carry versus not having it there at all.
Let me just remind council a little bit, or outline the structure of the ordinance. So the ordinance adopts the proposed rules for various chunks of city property that are under the supervision of Parks and Recs. There's park rules, trails and open space rules, rec facility rules. They're all separately done. I've just put up on the screen the parks, trails, and open space rules. So if you're talking about modifying the rule, this would be the one that you'd be looking at. There's this provision, of course, in there that prohibits essentially all deadly weapons. It's knives, firearms, bludgeons. That's what you would want to modify if you're thinking of modifying from the way that it was presented on first reading. And so since this covers both parks and trails and open space, you'd want to split that out in what you change here. And there is also attached to, and I'll pull this up, there's attached to the ordinance a list of the facilities. And if you look at this, Director Rice was talking about, they consider the Ranch Levee Trail System as open space, but the Riparian Park also, even though it's named a park, is considered open space. You also have the what do they call it? The put-ins to the North River Pavilion and State Avenue boat ramps. I don't know, Andy, whether you would consider those parks or open space or what.
Yeah, probably open space.
All right. Did that answer your question?
I have one more.
Go ahead.
Well, you had something.
I just wanted to clarify for everybody in the room and anybody else listening. I don't think it's okay to walk the dike with a rifle slung across your back, and of course, the cops should check that out. I'm just saying, a handgun, I think we get lost in generalizing everything, and no, I don't think that's safe or okay at all. That's scary, and that person's probably having an episode. But I think we do, I also have a really hard issue infringing on, people's right to protect themselves, and that's period. And I'm glad you've never seen anybody and I'm glad you felt safe on the dike, but I just think that, lumping it all together like this, because again, going back to this, I don't see anything in there about concealed carry at all. So we're gonna have to modify that anyway to allow it, because it's not in there, is it? Or am I
It's
just
there.
not seeing it?
The
It's in the
last
Dykes
sentence says
Bureau.
licensed concealed carry of firearms remains permitted, but is discouraged.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Krebs?
Thank you. So my one last question, keeping in the same thread, when there's a city event that overlaps into open space, how would that play out? And I'm thinking of the race coming up, where they run on the dikes and in the river and the whole 9 yards. How would that come into play for, say we agree for open carry and open spaces, but now we have a city event that whaps over that land?
None of those competitors are gonna carry anything. That's added weight that will slow them down.
Spectators.
Spectators?
But we're not legislating around festivals or events, so I think just the rules on the space would apply.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
definitely all minor walks, things of, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I
So
mean,
sometimes,
I don't wanna speak-
sometimes the worlds collide.
For council, but I mean, I think what we're putting up there would still apply if it's a race, you know, a festival or whatever.
Okay.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think in the past, depending on specific events prior to this ordinance, they've been almost individualized rules saying for this event, you can't do it. So for example, if this was to be changed for open space, they could still put out a special event, I believe, saying during this event, you cannot.
Okay, thank you. And then, so then I guess, I'm turning the conversation back to Counselor Dominguez, where we can blanket approve, or we can pull that one subject out, but how many people by pulling that one subject out will it benefit versus an entire city's safety if we don't?
Well, I think going back to Jackie's comment, how she feels on the dike, which is totally understandable, but there are a majority of people out there that we can't assume feel the same way. There are people out there who fear all the time for certain things and just don't want to do certain things, and they do have the right to carry. And I'm just not talking about carry. I also thought about fishing, like on the dike in the river and having a knife, and how this kind of but I know at the last officer that was here the last time said that it would be at the officer's discretion too. So I did sit with that too. So I know that there is a perfect opportunity for them to decide what's dangerous and what's not. And know in my conversation around this, did I ever think of a rifle? I was more thinking of open carry. I don't know if I've, other than hunting. So, and then I don't know BLMs, how they infringe on borders of city property. But bird hunting, I mean, there's just so many other things that I thought about, in response to a few emails that I got from residents, which I wish were here, but just certain things that I had to think about otherwise than just agreeing. So, and it was just that one open space piece.
And just to clarify on the rifle piece, I only bring that up because the right to carry doesn't apply just for handguns. And typically when we do get the calls, it is because of the rifle, because it stands out.
Okay,
Okay.
so we have a motion.
I call
under-
for the vote, Mayor.
Okay, that's what I'm about to do. We have are you done?
Yes.
Okay, all right. We have a motion, we have a second. No further discussion. We'll go ahead and start the vote. I think we're waiting on, one more vote.
We don't have, we're tied.
Why don't we got oh, okay. I thought we had 7 again. Okay, all right,
Oh,
okay.
okay.
Yeah, it fails, but why don't we have 7 people?
Because Liz had to.
Oh, he's left. Yeah, she had an emergency.
Okay,
Sorry.
So the motion fails because it is a vote of 3-3.
Okay,
Mayor,
all righty.
I'd like to make a motion,
Sure, go ahead.
which, am I doing this correctly?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So I'd like to make a motion that we pass this ordinance with the removal, but keep the open carry in the open space. At the end of the day, it's a small change and it's not something that we can't, if we deem it months from now that we need to go back and make it stricter, we can do that. But I would like to pass this, but keep open carry in open space.
Go ahead.
So what you would be proposing, just to clarify, Counselor
Yes,
Krebs,
yes, please.
is if we look at the attachment for parks, trails, and open space rules,
Okay.
and the bullet point that begins knives or any other dangerous instrument, you would leave that as is, but just add in a sentence where it says, licensed concealed carry of firearms remains permitted but is discouraged. Open carry of firearms, and you could limit it to handguns if you wanted, but open carry of firearms is permitted in open space but not in parks. Add that sentence or something to the end. Is that what you're
Correct.
getting at?
Probably very, very similar to the licensed concealed carry sentence, but with the amended wording.
Okay, and what amended wording would you propose then?
Licensed concealed carry of firearms remains permitted but is discouraged, period. Open carry in open spaces remains permitted but is also discouraged, something like that.
So that is correct. We've got a motion.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second for that motion?
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Yes, I do.
Go ahead.
So are we saying now with this proposed motion that you can open carry? I guess I need a further definition of open space. The dike right here on the river, is that considered open space? Because I have concerns of someone open carrying, and there's a lot of families and people, there's people walking their kids on strollers and that.
So I don't know the legal boundary, what you would call Cole Park versus the levee trail, but I would assume it is open space because we get into easements and access of the levee, that's my opinion.
I guess where I'm at, and I could meet some of you guys halfway, like if you're way in the back out there in the ranch, way back there, I'm good with that. But back here on the dike, right here along like the State Street Bridge and back towards Adams State and here and then going back to the footbridge down here, I don't think it should be there, no.
Yeah, and that's what I thought the definition of open space was the acreage of the.
Andy, would it help if we separate out the language to where a lot of our trails are on open space, but some of our trails are not, I guess? This would be one of those examples. So would it maybe help us and for this discussion, if we were to separate out and just say open space, but then keep the restrictions on trails not located in open space, or is it just starting to get complicated?
Yeah, it's starting to get complicated. I mean, for example, the disc golf area is technically a park, Oxbow Recreation Area. So there's 20 acres there that were carved out for a previous GOCO grant application and officially a park. But yeah, we need some time to identify trails versus open space versus trails and parks. And, obviously there's a perimeter track here at Cole Park that's in the park. Well, is the levee trail there in the park? Probably not. So that, to answer Counselor Vihil's question.
Do you feel the same if we were to pull out the levee trail? Do you feel like the levee trail could be different than all the other trails that seem more isolated?
No, I think Carson has his light on, then, but let's answer that question for you, Councilor Vio, since it's pertaining to your question, and then we'll go to Councilor Carson.
Yes.
Okay.
that gets at making you more comfortable. If we take out
Trails
the
out-
levee trail.
I like that, how you said that, isolated trails out in the middle of the ranch. I'm good with open carry. High trafficked trails along the levee, I am not okay with that.
Depending on the feeling of the rest of council, the best way to get at that kind of issue would be to attach a map to the rules that shows where open carry is allowed, because it is just going to be impossible to define with language.
All right. Counselor
But
Carson?
the rest of council has to be interested in that if we're going to do that, and then you would just move to table this until your next meeting and take it up then.
Right, Counselor Carson?
I have an idea of what the answer is to this, but besides the, and I think it's great, don't get me wrong, but besides the contact piece, I guess that's not my question. My question is, what onset this? What onset this change and this new ordinance? How did it come about? Besides the contact piece, because I think the piece of the contacting people with a deadly weapon could be done in a different ordinance than this. That's my opinion. On city property, you know what I mean? It can be done in a much cleaner way than just lumping all the hours, everything. So what onset this entire lumping of all this together, I guess? Have we had a uptick in deadly weapon attacks in the park? We have, and guns and stabbings and stuff?
Well, it's a small sample size, but yes, the last couple years, in my tenure of 12, 14 years, we had never had any gun violence, and we had some in Carroll Park 1 or 2 years ago. And then we also had the carnival proprietor stabbed last year. And then to answer your previous question, rec board discussions around safety kind of manifested from those contact pieces that you accurately described were the start of this. And just general safety, I would say, around park use and open space and patrons. And Heather, feel free to jump in.
But didn't we have, didn't we have, so they, basically, right now, what's the difference today, if we pass this ordinance versus 6 months ago, would be if somebody got caught today with a deadly weapon in the park, they would get a ticket or a summons versus 6 months ago, they wouldn't have? Or is it just a contact piece? Do you know what I mean? Like, trying to understand what we couldn't do 6 months ago that we could do with this. I'm just curious.
What my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, Captain Spangler, is without this, I mean, police can contact whoever they want to contact. But if they have a weapon or something like that and they're not brandishing it or doing anything necessarily with it, we can't ask them to leave the event or to get rid of it. Whereas if this is here and it's a large crowd and this isn't allowed anymore, I think first contact would be, hey, this isn't allowed. Can you take it off the premise? If they refuse, then it would escalate. But Captain Spangler, please talk on this.
So that's correct. I don't know what would have happened prior to 6 months ago. What I understood was we didn't have an ordinance, so people were allowed to carry open carry in parks. As a law enforcement profession, it makes law enforcement officers uncomfortable to approach somebody who's carrying unless we have another reason outside of the fact that he's carrying, because we don't want to violate somebody's constitutional rights to carry as well, right? And usually if they're carrying, they have a pretty strong belief on that issue. So earlier we talked about, is it the totality of the circumstances, right? If I'm going to get called to somebody that may have an open carry, we don't just go and contact them because we need more information besides, hey, he's carrying a gun and it makes us uneasy.
So
This will now give us that next step to say, hey, we can, and at least get a little further discussion on, okay, why they're carrying or not, I guess.
And I think
So
we've also had.
to play devil's advocate, Okay, I'll shut up.
No, I just want to say, we also had shots fired that I think Andy forgot to share at one of the events as well. I just wanted to add, there was one more thing.
It's fine.
In the event that Andy mentioned at Carroll Park, right across the street from a high school, it was more recent than that, within the last, during this school year for sure.
But none of those were legal carries. None of them they didn't have the right to carry. That was completely illegal, you know, and nobody there was legal. There's a flip side to this point, because keep in mind, this particular ordinance, in my opinion, has the ability to cause more agitation than the agitation it's gonna prevent. Because if you have somebody who is an open carry adult in a park with their kids and they're hanging out, walking up on them to ask them why they're carrying is just gonna agitate that situation in particular, in my opinion. If you have, you know, a guy brandishing a sword, that's already an automatic call anyway. You gotta deal with that anyway. So I just have questions as to why this was on set and how, I don't know, it feels like an overreach. It feels like we're just imposing laws that we could have dealt with anyway, and we're just putting something on the books, I guess.
So in the broad sense, I see where you're coming from. There was one other specific incident as far as our department started this conversation, is we weren't able to remove somebody throwing knives at a tree at Cole Park a year or two ago because it was within the 3.5 inches. And our concern was it's going to deflect off a tree. It might miss a tree, but really at the end of the day, we could talk to them and we had to let them keep throwing at the tree.
That sucks. So I can see your point there. Thank you.
Okay, Counselor Krebs?
Thank you. And correct me if the way I see it, Chief Spangler, is that this is a step, when we met with you at the beginning of the year and the meetings that we've had since then, I have heard one phrase repeatedly, and that is, that we want the police department to be more proactive than reactive. And I think that this ordinance speaks to that. It allows you, by having this, it informs the public of what they should and shouldn't do without you doing that first engagement. And so it allows you to react to bad behavior if needed, but this is a proactive step in public areas.
Absolutely.
Okay, so for point of clarification, we have another motion on, so far that you just made, Counselor Krebs, and we have a second. Can you recite that motion again? Because we're gonna have to vote again to see where we end up, because you're asking to remove specific wording from it.
And having done that, I'd like to amend the motion. Okay, with the permission, can I tell them what the motion is? Okay.
That would be best.
I'd like to try to amend it to have this piece be mapped out and to show what the open spaces that it would be allowed to be more as a visual, to see if that is something that we would still be willing to do or not do in the future.
And does that mean, as part of that mapping out, that the open carry would not be on the levy, or would the open carry be on the levy?
I think, for me personally, and I'm trying desperately to speak to my ward as well, because we do have Riparian Park in there in the back, is that, so open spaces of a certain acreage, but then open spaces that abut next to public spaces that are more frequented would be a no.
To delineate that, okay.
Correct.
And if that's what you want to do, I would suggest that the way to do that with the permission of your second would be to just withdraw your motion
Okay.
and move to table this, directing staff to come back to council either the next meeting or however long they think it'll take, with a few proposed maps that would show various options for that. Because we can't draw a map tonight.
No, this is true. So with permission of my second, I would like to do what he said.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. And so I would like to amend my motion to table this until maps can be provided, and then that further discussion can be had concerning the open carry. You know, and at the end of the day, it might not be feasible, or it might be feasible. But if we have a visual in front of us to be able to see so that we're all on the same page about it. So yeah, I make a motion. I don't want to. I believe strongly in this. And if it helps Andy at all, I think we're all on board with the curfew part. So, I mean, there's that. But I would like to make a motion to table this until we can see like a visual of what we're talking about for the open carry and open spaces.
Okay, we have a motion. She asked for your permission to have a second. Okay, we have a motion, a second. Any further discussion? I just might add to that, and because it seems like we just made this really complicated. If there's a way in doing the map, if you could distinguish how people will know the difference when they're in one zone versus another zone, so it's not as complicated as it is now. So if you can do that, that'd be fine too. Any other discussion? Not? Start vote? Okay,
The motion carried unanimously.
all right, thank you. Brings us to the next item on the agenda.
Mayor, real quick,
Mhm,
point of order.
mhm.
Holly, I know that first vote was 3-3, but we didn't see who voted which way. Can you clarify that?
Yeah, Counselor Krebs, Counselor Dominguez, and Counselor Vihil all voted no for the first motion.
Thank you. Well, which Hill? Jack?
No, you.
I voted
No, I
no.
think that's different.
Mhm.
Like, I have
Yeah.
a technical.
Yeah, I think that's-
The point at the beginning of the meeting. John's card is inserted in this machine, my card must be inserted. in John's machine.
Okay, so then it's Counselor Carson that voted
I
no.
wondered about that.
Yeah,
And I think I voted no as well.
Out of 3-3 on my screen.
Yeah, so. So I don't know how,
This wasn't here.
yeah, it was 3-3.
Right, it was 3-3, but I had Counselor Krebs, Counselor Dominguez, and then Counselor Carson as the no votes for the first motion.
Oh, for the first one,
For the first motion.
okay. Gotten the first motion now, so.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
probably
the
right.
first motion was the original.
Yeah, that's right, that's right.
So if we
That's
were to
right.
revote, it would still be 3-3. Is that what we're saying?
Yeah,
I voted no.
I know.
The first motion was to approve as it was presented.
The first motion was the
As
original
presented,
language.
yeah.
The no was Mr. Dominguez, Mr. Carson. Who was the other no? Okay.
Counselor Krebs.
And that was,
And it failed because it
That-
was a vote of 3-3.
okay, all right, thank you.
yeah, that's right. Good, all right, thank you. Thank you for that point of clarification. All right, brings us to the next item. Second reading and public hearing for ordinance number 6-2024, an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances of the City of Alamosa to include a new Chapter 17 titled Guidelines and Regulations for Water Projects for Export Outside the San Luis Valley as designated as matters of the state interest of the City of Alamosa.
Thank you, Mayor. So informally known as Alamosa's 1041 regulations. And as we discussed on first reading, what this does is adopts regulations governing water export schemes that originate in or cross through the jurisdictional boundaries of the City of Alamosa. This is done in conjunction with similar, in fact, based on the same template 1041 regulations across the valley. Every single county, I believe, has already adopted these. There may be one or two that haven't yet. And I'm not aware of that many municipalities that have adopted them yet, but the municipalities have all been involved in the discussion, which has been spearheaded by the Council of Governments. And so we are probably, of all of the municipalities in the valley, the one that's most suited to deal with an application for water export impinging upon our jurisdictions. I just frankly don't think that's particularly likely to happen because our jurisdictional area is so limited, it's easy to go around us and not have to mess with us. But what this does do in conjunction with the intergovernmental agreement is gives us a seat on the table for the committee that valley-wide will hear applications from anywhere and make recommendations. So we could continue to discuss, but I think we went through this some on first reading and should be ready for the public hearing.
Okay. With that being said, we're going to go ahead and open up the second reading and public hearing for ordinance number 6, 2024. We have anyone in the audience right now who would like to come up to the podium and make any comment? Please feel free to come up to the podium. Okay. I don't see anyone in the audience. So we'll go back to the Zoom participants, and Ms. Martinez, if you can give them instructions on how to raise their hands.
Yes, sir. If you're on the Zoom app and you want to speak for this ordinance, you'll use the raise hand feature in the bottom of your screen. If you're on a telephone, you'll dial *9.
Okay, don't see any hands raised, Ms. Martinez, do you?
I do not either, Mayor.
Okay, so we'll close this public hearing and bring it back to council for additional comments, questions, or to make a motion. Councilor Carson?
I just have one comment and then I would make a motion. I agree with Eric in the fact that we are an unlikely target because they could go around us, but just the fact of being at that table is important as we're the hub of the valley. This city is the hub of the valley, and it's an extremely important conversation. Any export would have a cyclic effect on the entire valley that would be, it'd turn us into a dust bowl. And so this is an extremely important venture. It's 2 years in the making. And as mundane as it may seem, or it may seem that, I mean, we never want to use this tool. We never want to pull it out. It's extremely important. So I just want to say thank you to Eric for being involved in it too and being a big part of that. He's had a ton of input. His drive here was also presented in that conversation, and in those conversations, he did push for some changes that were reflected. So thank you, Eric. Appreciate that greatly. And yeah, with that being said, I'll make a motion that we approve this on second reading.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Not, please start voting. Okay, Ms. Martinez?
The motion carried unanimously.
Okay, good. That brings us down to committee reports. Do we have any committee reports? Okay, Councilman Dominguez.
I attended the Housing Authority meeting today. Like I said once before, my hat's off to this board. They work on extremely hard issues. Brian Lujan was the new executive director. He was present in the meeting today. He is a Valley native, and he has an extensive background of working at the city of Center. So I think he's a pretty good candidate in my opinion. The one thing that I was blown away by today was their assessment that they did with their tenants. And there was a lot of demographics that they were touching on that I think a lot of practices are starting to use now that historically didn't. And it's to collect data around to get a feel for what the tenants want. And the top three strategic process, the strategic process was pointing out their top three focuses were quarterly meetings. A lot of the tenants wanted to get more quarterly meetings done and talk about things instead of waiting longer. Community events, they were interested in how to have access to community events there in the housing, which I thought was interesting because I think with community events, they can get a lot of the other information that I think they were struggling not getting. The third was access to DHS and services. So I think it kind of solidifies the three main topics that affect, I think, everybody, not just people in the housing authorities. So I thought that was interesting, and they did an awesome job. They had a 20% response to all the surveys they had sent out, which I know isn't huge, but it is substantial. I think they're working towards getting a lot more in the future. 6 of them were online, the rest were hard copies to the units. The other things that they discussed were, the other top 5 safety issues were like upgrades and walk-in tubs that I know they're working on, and that they're just, some of these things are already being addressed. Sun protection for playgrounds in the area, ADA accessibility in the parking lot areas. And the survey, I think, they recommended having like more open-ended questions or an option to explain it and dive deeper in some of the questions that were being asked. They also reported that 67.6% of them are reading the newsletters. So I think that's good. So I don't know if that's a place they could get more of the community events out in. And I also learned about the justice, equity, and inclusion goals and the trainings they have around that. And I was very impressed with that too. I think that helps open everybody's eyes to certain scenarios that historically we don't have any information on working around with different populations. And I think that was it. Many of the residents, there must have been a question on the survey about their overall how they felt about staff, and all of them were overall happy with them, that they were very good at what they did, grounds them in all the way up to the other pieces involved with the housing, but overall they had a good report on the staff. So, and that's it.
Okay, thank you. Very good reporting out, Counselor Dominguez. Counselor Carson.
Mayor, I don't have a committee report, but I have something that's bugging me that I want to ask. Is it possible to do that?
We'll save that for council comments, if that's okay. We'll get through the committee reports and then do staff announcement, and then council comments. You could bring that up at that time, okay? All right, and then any other committee reports? I did attend the Parks and Rec event and board meeting, and I apologize, my notes, I can't find them on my phone, that's where I put them. But Ms. Sanchez, if you have any notes that you want to bring up, I know that there was a lot of things we talked about as far as different activities, noxious weeds and things like that.
I would say overall, most of the programming numbers are up. They, go over just all the diversity of programming, from sports to ceramics to power lunch, all of those types of things. There's a lot of time getting the group prepped to think through the capital improvement plan as we prepare for the budget. And discussion in regards to when you only have 200,000 a year for capital planning, and your department's as big as the Parks and Rec department is, that can go pretty fast just on maintenance projects. If you need to purchase a vehicle, if you need to, do some of the park upgrades, those types of things, you can burn through that 200,000. So I think the group is really gonna, over the next few meetings, collect information and really take a look at, with some of the moving pieces of debt and things like that, are we able to keep up with maintenance? And then is there more needed to tackle some of these dream projects that are much more fun to work on? So I think there's a lot of discussions going on with that. Andy, am I missing anything from a report out? There's more talk on the ordinance you guys talked about tonight.
That's true. Thank you so much, and I apologize for not being able to find my actual notes on here, but thank you for covering that. Okay, no other committee reports. We'll go down to staff announcements.
Thank you, Mayor. The only announcements I wanted to do is just a reminder for some of the upcoming meetings. Next week, council does have 2 dinners. So we do have the board appreciation dinner on Monday, April 22nd at 6 p.m. at Calvillo's. I think Holly was telling me that we have over 100 RSVPs. And so this is a really great opportunity to connect with all those volunteers that we have that sit on the boards and the commissions and the work that they do. And so really looking forward to that. The other dinner that we have is next week, which is Wednesday, April 24th, and that's the joint dinner with the county commissioners, also at 6 PM, and that will be at Juanito's Mexican Kitchen. I do want to share, usually those are great dinners and we kind of catch each other up on different projects of interest. But Ronnie Wisdom, the county administrator, and I have been having some meetings as it relates to the levy project. So we will be providing some updates as it relates to that. So it's a little bit more of a meaty dinner than I think we've had in the past as far as valuable content that we're going to be sharing. And then lastly, May 15th at 5:30 is the police memorial ceremony. That usually it will start at 5:30. It's a very touching ceremony. And then usually there's enough time for council to catch a bite to eat at the fire station before we start our 7 o'clock meeting. And so just wanted to share that. It is outdoors for those who maybe have not attended in the past. So depending on weather, it's either a gorgeous day or it's a little windy usually. So that's all we have from a staff update.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Sanchez. That brings us down to council comments, and we have Councilor Carson.
So, earlier I really needed to pee, so that's why I walked out when I voted. I wasn't trying to affect the vote in a negative way, but I do understand all aspects, and from a law enforcement standpoint, Chief, I wasn't, I support what you guys are doing. So I guess my question is this. Because you addressed how complicated we've made it, and I'm not helping that right now.
It's okay.
But, Eric, when you're looking at that language, see, and I know we can do it because it's done all the time, but see if it's possible to wordsmith it to where you say, where you're addressing these areas that Jan was talking about, but include long guns in there. Because what you bring up, Chief, about somebody carrying a rifle open carry, I've seen scenarios in a lot of scenarios where that causes panic. So I'm not okay with that, and I don't want that to be conveyed. So if it's possible to include long guns in that language, it might help that perception, and it may help from a safety standpoint, because again, being able to make contact with somebody carrying a long gun is, I think, much more important than just somebody jogging, carrying a small sidearm or something. That's a big difference, because in my opinion, if you're walking in the park with a long gun, something else is going on mentally. You should know better than to do that. And that also brings us to the point of age. Somebody with a handgun has to be 21. An 18-year-old could buy it, or did they just change the law in Colorado? They did, huh? You can't buy it anymore at 18, huh? Long gun. Okay, so that nulls that. But in the past, 18-year-olds have been able to purchase rifles, and so there is an age factor there. So it just really bothered me. I wasn't trying to kill the whole thing. I just thought it did need to be separated out a little bit. But if you could look at what including long guns in there looks like, I would appreciate that greatly.
Well, so yes, and that would be easy to do. So I think since council already closed its discussion on that and we have our direction, just bring that up at the next discussion and we can easily address that.
Okay, and I didn't know if you had to add
Or
it
we
into
can
the
improve, we can include it as some options.
Yeah.
We can
Okay.
include it as options.
I appreciate that again, because I was, I understand everybody's perspective, and I'm not trying to downplay anybody's. There's a fine line, and I got hammered with emails and calls too. But besides that was my personal opinion so I just want to put that out there. Thank you, guys.
Okay,
Sorry.
thank you, Councilor Carson. Councilor Dominguez?
I just wanted to apologize in advance that I was set up for both dinners next week, but I have a training coming up with our organization around youth suicide, so I had to jump on that. It's only offered every 3 years, so we're taking staff there, so I apologize, just to let everybody know that I just didn't show up.
Okay. Thank you, Councilor Dominguez. Okay, Councilor Jan Vigil.
Mayor, and I don't want to step on your toes, Heather. I don't know if you were going to do this or not, but wanted to congratulate Brandon on his new position with the city. Sorry.
We were going to introduce him, but then since that opened up a promotion and then a backfill, then we were going to introduce the whole IT team. But anytime we can embarrass Brandon, we're all for that. So
That's why you bring up the mixed up parts at the beginning.
Okay, that's funny. Okay, all right, we still have an executive session to go into, so there are no other council comment. Go council,
Mayor, I'm gonna
Yeah.
move us into executive session, if you're okay with that.
okay, go ahead.
I move that we go into executive session pursuant to CRS 24-6-4024E to determine positions, develop strategy, and instruct negotiators concerning development incentives for a downtown boutique hotel.
Okay,
Seconded.
we have a motion, a second. Any further discussion? Not, please start voting. Okay, Ms. Martinez?
The motion carried unanimously.
Okay, we will enter into executive session. No further business will be discussed after executive session has concluded.